if I could just speak to my fellow angry white American guys, give it up.
That's right.
My name is Megan. I've had an abortion. My name is Olivia. I've had an abortion.
Out and proud.
Trans members of this family.
Oh, I can't go on with this charade any longer.
Take ownership.
People are going to start thinking I'm a nerd.
It's all on you. Character is you do what's right.
We did it. We're officially live. This has been a long time coming. A very long time coming. At least 3 weeks or so that you've been very patient as we've attempted to get you on this podcast. And every time that we have tried to do this, I have screwed something up and we've got to postpone. But we did it. It's official. I'm very happy to have you on here. You have, a confusing name in my book. I know you as CM because you're in Discord, but also Gilbert. I don't know what you go by. I'm going to call you CM because that's what I know you as.
Sulinado Torone Bonema. El Encila Lumen Omitielto.
Yeah, I didn't say that this is going to be a bilingual episode, so I hope you're ready for that, everybody.
Let's put it this way. That is Elvish for greetings, good guild brother. A star shines on the hour of our meeting.
Oh my, you do have that down.
Because today
That's
is
impressive.
September 22nd. It's Hobbit Day. Today is Frodo.
Is that right?
Bilbo Baggins' birthday. September 22nd.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. I could talk about that. We actually, the first time we spoke, we talked a fair amount about, Lord of the Rings. And side note, I wanted to point this out. If you're watching this live or listening to this, the quality, the technical quality of this podcast is pretty low. I'm transitioning into a home that we've been working on. So I'm actually literally in a closet that isn't quite finished yet on a laptop with no microphone. And you look like you're in a garage, but you're dressed like you're at some sort of white tie ball or something. You're dressed very well. And actually, I am not. I'm dressed to fit for a closet.
This is what I wear to work every day. Is this style every day.
Which looks pretty dang good. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely changes the way people treat you when you show up.
Has it? In what way? What have you noticed?
Oh, well, when people are acting the fool, they suddenly stop because they suddenly realize, whoa, yeah, this guy's put together. And they did that even when I was in uniform. They would see shoes are shined, everything's square and to the toe of the line, and they'd see all my leather gear was polished, everything was ready to go. For those who don't know, I'm a police officer, currently a detective, which just means I'm a glorified secretary. But it does make a difference. Appearances make a difference. And it's setting that personal standard for yourself that says, I'm going to be better. And as a result, usually you elevate everyone else that you come into contact with.
How long have you had that standard for yourself? Has that been something that's always been a part of you, or did something change at some point in your life?
Oh, yeah, no. From the beginning, I've been doing this for 16 years. So it's been at least that long. But even before then, I would maintain standards that I would hold for myself simply because I like to be presentable. I like to show that I am ready to go. I'm on time. I'm positive about what I'm doing, even if I hate what I'm doing. And that's a total philosophy I've held on to for many, many years.
So did that come from your parents? Was that something kind of top down in your family?
My parents were, yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of that. I mean, my dad worked in aircraft industry. He did technical publications for pretty much, you name an aircraft that is a commercial plane or a military plane in the last 50 years, and he's worked on it.
Oh, wow.
including
No
the top
kidding.
secret stuff. Including the top secret
Wow.
stuff.
Oh, that's
So,
fascinating. Anytime I see an airplane of any kind, I turn into a 4-year-old and just love everything about aircraft. Well, I mean, not enough to ever have pursued it, but as a 4-year-old appreciates something flying through the sky, it blows me away. Still, I'm just hooked on that. I think
oh,
it's
yeah.
so fascinating.
No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I used to turn wrenches on helicopter engines back in the day too, so that's another
Oh, wow.
thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I have 2 questions for you that I ask everybody on the podcast so far. You're the 5th person to be asked these questions. The first one is, how do you define a good man? Which actually is very much on topic for today.
Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in it he meditates day and night. And he will be like a tree planted by streams of waters that bears fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and whatsoever he does, he prospers. That is a good man.
I want to dive into that, but I did that last show and we didn't get to the second question, which bothered nobody. But I still feel like I should ask the second question, and then we can get back into it because that actually would be a perfect segue. The second question is, why did you join this little thing we're putting together that we call Bettermans?
In honesty, it was simply because I have been maintaining a high standard for many years, but those around me, the other men around me, they're just like, oh yeah, oh yeah, he always looks good. But nobody else would kind of join in. This group, well, your video mentioned that, and then having discussed things on Discord and stuff, I finally realized it's like, oh, these guys are actually legitimately wanting to get better and want to improve themselves. And so that was what really attracted me, is that idea of, I'm not going to just stand for the status quo. I'm going to stand up and say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to act this way. We're not going to be stupid and dull and cow down. We're going to stand up and say, no, we're done with that. That's no longer a thing.
Interesting. Well, that actually makes for a pretty good segue also, because the topic for today is standards, and I've kind of roped it into good and what the pursuit of good looks like and how you define good, which I think we're probably discussing the same things. Standards. Where do your standards come from ultimately? So leads into the first question: how do you define good? What is good?
Well, let's kind of talk about what we know is generally not good. We kind of got to have that contrast before we can really establish that level. So, like Illinois last week just published that they were going to no longer require bond for things like robbery, burglary, or other assaultive offenses. So they're basically getting showed up, get arraigned, say, please promise to come back, and sent on their merit. So if you're living in Illinois, January 1st, your state's about to burn to the ground, because that's what's going to happen.
Wow.
So, and of course, being in law enforcement, I've seen how law enforcement standards have declined, just even in the 16 years I've been in. I actually had to maintain a standard, and now I'm looking at, it's like, these kids don't have any standards at all. So that's kind of a thing. And then schools, they haven't had standards for years. I mean, they didn't have standards when I was going through school, and I graduated in 1990. So even back then, there were no real standards, and my education came after I left school. So just understand, it's like when standards are supplanted with lesser requirements or disregarded out of hand, chaos is just bound to ensue. So your standard is whatever you tolerate. And if you go with that, that's going to be whatever you get. So But the thing is Alexander Solzhenitsyn had a great quote. The line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart.
Mm.
So ultimately, we are the ones who set what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, by how we live as individuals. I mean, Alexander Solzhenitsyn put that pretty succinctly. But the thing is, it's like you have to have a standard. So what are you going to set your standard at? You have the Bible, you have Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, you have Sun Tzu, Bushido, Buddhism, Norse paganism, Shintoism. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that you can apply your standard to. But you're going to have one. You can't just go through life without it.
Well, I think that's part of the thing we see in today's culture, I think, is that there has been a decline of what the standard used to be, because I think there used to be a more defined standard. There used to be a sort of, at least a collection of thoughts that were anchored around biblical principles, really, from the founding of the country, whether you believe that way or not. Personally, that's what this country was founded on, and so that was sort of the authority used when you defined good and evil. And I think that line has been completely blurred by today. There's so many different standards by what good is, because there's a whole group of people in the U.S. who think that the way that we think is completely wrong. It's not the right standard. So how do you bring that back, in your opinion, to some kind of centralized standard when everybody feels like, no, you should have your own standard? It's not about having a unified standard.
Perfect lead into the next thing. So Arthur Fletcher Brock, he wrote this book in 1916, so during the middle of the Great War, World War I. And it's actually a book that C.S. Lewis actually read and commented on, and believed was a thing. And his basic premise was an object, morality as an object of art, as a mode of art, and then an object to be pursued for its own beauty. So the thing about it is it's a philosophy, and to understand philosophy is basically the rational investigation of the truths and principles of being and knowledge and conduct. So it's a mode of living. It's a standard to live by. So his thing, and I'm going to read this off because this floored me when I read this the other day. And actually, you get this book online. You can just look it up, and you can find an online copy of it. But every man is born a philosopher, but often the philosopher is suppressed in him by the hand-to-mouth thinking needed for the struggle for life. So boys are often more philosophical than men, pupils than their teachers, and what they miss in their lessons without knowing it is philosophy. So without philosophy, there is no why, and therefore no objective standard can be established. You have to have those things in order to make sense. So what is the philosophy? Everyone has one, believe it or not. I mean, you learn to have one, whether you recognized it as such or not. It is how you establish relationships. How do you interact with others? How do you resolve conflict? Those basic things. Those are the things that everybody has some kind of notion of understanding and how to live. So you can't teach philosophy if you don't really have one. So a choice has to be made. What philosophy are you going to go with? Because right now the current standard is just moral relativism. And moral relativism keeps shifting. So it's like we were feminism for so long, but then transgender came into it, and now we have dudes who are in girls' sports and girls who try to be in boys' sports but get beat soundly. So where did the feminism go? They basically destroyed women's sports by allowing this transgender foolishness and making that thing normal. So is it feminism or is it transgender? Which one are we going to use? So you can't keep going that. So, and then the other, oh, this is my favorite though. Man, live your truth.
Yes,
Live your truth. So
exactly.
people without talent thinking that they do have talent, you know, or you can be, this is, sadly, this is actually from my day and age. So Sesame Street in the 70s, they were still doing this. You can be whatever you want to be, whether you have no skill or talent for that thing that you're wanting to be.
Hmm.
So how soul crushing is that? All of a sudden, it's like, well, they said I could be whatever I wanted to be. Now you can't, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't have any talent for that, or nobody will hire me for that, or nobody will give me a shot at this because you suck.
But
You know?
here's the one of the issues is we live in a world today, maybe the first time in human history, where you can pretty much be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, and there's very few consequences. At least if you live in this country, in sort of the Western world, where you're so life has become so easy, and there's so
Oh yeah.
few. There's obviously you go back in time not very far at all, and you couldn't live that way. You had to have certain standards, you had to live up to a
Oh yeah.
certain ideal, because there wasn't room for anything else. You would fall on your face, you would fail, nobody would support you
Mm-hmm.
for going after a different, and so that's the tricky thing right now is, and I think naturally it's going to change. I think you can already see the shift in this country anyways toward
Oh yeah.
difficulty coming back into culture. So I think it fixes itself, but it's going to be a rude awakening for a lot of people who have lived without any kind of standard, without any sort of
Oh
anchor
yeah.
to their life, to just float around.
Yeah. Well, it is a self-correcting issue in a lot of ways, because
Yeah.
it's like, well, you can either go do this other thing, or you can go hungry and live under a bridge.
We're heading
And
there.
yeah, I'm thing is, my office is downtown, and I pass by the people who live under the bridge because they do not wish to live by a standard. And I'm
Mm.
like, there you go. There's your perfect example. All you have to do is look at Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco streets
Yep,
and see the result.
it's true.
Peace, love. So stupid. But
Well, it is, and
here's the
that
other
whole
thing.
way of thinking is like rewarded now. That's where our
Oh yeah,
culture is at to some degree.
yeah,
You're rewarded the further away you can get from cultural norms that existed even 50 years ago, the better for you.
absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like the critical race theory thing that's been
Yes.
harboring all the things. And so theory, the word theory is the term we use to try to explain something. So if critical race theory, is it explaining or is it exploiting?
Hmm.
Which is it? So you can't change what you're willing to tolerate, and if you're just going to keep tolerating people running their mouths and acting stupid and being a fool, guess what? You're going to have more people standing up acting a fool, and it makes it worse. We've like my got to be careful what I say here. Seen where cities have acquiesced to these thugs, and they are thugs.
Yeah.
I've seen people, that show up to city council meetings and say, I don't feel safe, this, that, and the other. And you go and find out it's like they don't even live in that city. They live in another city, 100 miles away or 50 miles away. They don't live there where they're saying, I don't feel safe in this city. You don't even live here. You're just stirring up trouble. And that's what this weakness of accepting whatever standard is basically inviting thuggery to come in and just eat you alive. Thugs can't stand up to people who are willing to stand up and say, no, we're going to disagree. And then like even I remember the tornadoes that struck Fort Worth in 99, and he had a pretty hard chief at the time who, when the whole of downtown was shut down, shut down entirely. So he basically tasked officers, said, carry shotguns. Anybody's down there, you shoot them. They're looting. Just straight up said that that's what's going to happen. Like, okay, that's awesome. And guess what? We had no looting. We had no problem.
Yep.
You look at other disasters, Miami, the last, I think it was Hurricane Hugo, man, or New Orleans, man, they sacked those places. Nobody had anything to do but just to go out there and just raid these businesses that were shuttered up, but they just peeled the boards off and went in there and stole everything. And they didn't have any officers out there handling business. So it's different when you have a standard and say, this is what we're not going to tolerate, and we're going to defend it. And actually, it's on you. You decide you're going to act that way. This is what's going to happen. So,
well, it's interesting because as you see the push for a lot of people to sort of pull themselves away from any sort of standard and just bring the quality of life, like you're talking about in so many cities, down to just horrific standards of living. You see a lot of people on the other side who are standing up that probably wouldn't have before. You know, that's one of the things that I think you see. There's always a good with the bad. There's a light in the darkness. And when you see, I think, something like this happening all over the country, it does. I can speak from experience myself. I know when things growing up, for the most part, were sort of lukewarm. There wasn't really any sort of divide politically or culturally. It was easy just to like not care, just to go through the motions and not really think about what do you really believe, what are your standards. But I think that's being called into question more and more, which is why, you know, since we started this Bettermans thing, you can see that there are a lot of men specifically out there who for themselves have said enough is enough. It's time to stand up and at least change myself, better myself, because the spotlight's on you in a different way, especially when you see the darkness around you. It's so evident, so much more evident than I think it used to be, or so much more in your face, especially with social media, that it really puts a light on you. And you have to look into the dark corners of yourself and figure out, you know, what do you really stand for? And are you willing to stand for that and really take action for yourself personally? Make yourself better, make yourself an example.
Yeah. Well, that leads us into the next thing I had lined up is, what do we do? What are you going to do? So everyone and everything seeks a homeostasis. You know, we want to have nothing mess up, but the thing is, challenge is necessary for improvement. So here's the thing, we've been living in homeostasis for however long we've been. So for me, that's a half a century. I've been in homeostasis, essentially. Well, maybe less than that, because I've been actually actively working against this very thing pretty much for the last 10 to 15 years. But I've just been standing by myself. You know, I'd maintain whatever standard I could, and the thing is, nobody could come at me because I always had a ready defense for what it was I was talking about. That's where they couldn't get me. So understand, you can't just go out there and say, well, I don't like this. You need to have a why. Why are we doing this? So we have to be able to be prepared to break that homeostasis to achieve that higher level. So this is going to require you're going to have to establish a standard for yourself. You got to start with you. But here's the key. You cannot be based on you at all. It has to be something that comes outside of you. Because if you choose yourself, what ultimately happens is you leave yourself open to be controlled by others. Because if you don't have a standard that's outside of yourself, then people could come and persuade you and say, oh, well, no, you actually, you're so nice in this way. You probably would do better with this. Or you should act this way because that's more in line with your character. These people may not even know what your character really is. And that's because it's based on yourself. You have no anchor. And that's what we have to do, is have anchor. So basically all civilizations, you know, base their laws and conducts on ultimately a higher power. I mean, the Greeks had the Greek gods. Of course, you see how that worked out. The Romans had basically took the Greek gods, but said, yeah, but we're going to also base it on this standard of living that Rome is all, and we're going to control it all from here. And they lasted almost 1,000 years. I mean, the Babylonians lasted a really long time. The Assyrians lasted a long time. The Etruscans lasted a really long time. The Egyptians lasted a really long time. But ultimately, they all cratered because they stopped believing that philosophy. They started relying more on the self, or as Freud, I think, calls it, the id, the inner being person that you are. And that's when you start, that's when where men rise and fall. That's really where they rise and fall, is when they start losing the standard. That's when you start seeing civilization crumble. So that's where we come. So understand, we need to find something and not have, understand history was written by the victors, but not necessarily the righteous. So you can't have chronological snobbery and assume necessarily that the present owns more of the truth than the past. You really need to research things better and have a better understanding of what do you want to base on. Because in my life, I base everything on the Bible. That's where my open, full disclosure here, I am a believer in Jesus Christ and have no problem saying so in any form whatsoever. And that's where I base my personal belief standard. Other people may not hold to that, and they may still, operate with good motives, good intentions. But the thing is, most of the time, people who are doing that can still be swayed a lot easier. You have to have a firm foundation in that. So never accept where you are today, because you're going to be somewhere else tomorrow. And that's where you got to understand. It's like, even if I have that standard, I have to live more up to that standard. I mean, this is just one aspect of it. Having my hair groomed, being dressed well, being able to articulate my position is even more important. How I conduct my business when I am at work, how I treat people, those are all part of the ethos that I have to tap into in that other philosophy that's outside myself, that brings me up to a better level. So the biggest thing is taking it from apprehension. I know that I need this thing, and that thing is up there, but I need to bring it down to comprehension and actually put it inside myself. So, I mean, you can have an understanding that I need something, but until you actually comprehend what it is you need, nothing's going to happen. So set up a plan, whatever that plan is. And here's the thing, depending on what your goals are, if it's a short term, you may need to plan, maybe a day or a few hours. But if you're planning a year-long goal, you might need to take a month to assess, okay, what are these things going to cause? What am I going to have to do to make this goal happen? So then you set it up, you run your plan, and see if it succeeds or fails. Now, if it succeeds, you obviously had a pretty good plan. But if it fails, why did it fail? Did it fail because of you? Did you not do what you were supposed to do? Was an external failure, external factor that you did not take into account? Something outside that you didn't take into account for. It's like, you got to be able to think of those things ahead of time. So understand, others are never the cause of your failure. Never. And if others are responsible, most likely it was you that did not properly vet them, or You failed to prepare them to succeed, because if you're bringing people along with you, you have to have them to be able to succeed. Now, if that's on you, who's ultimately responsible? Still not them. It's you. So you have to be able to do that. So the biggest thing is train your mind daily. If you don't train your mind and purge your negative thoughts, because that's where people get caught up most of the time is those negative thoughts. So I can't do this. I can't keep this going. I don't have enough. An example is, I hit a personal record for myself Tuesday. I was able to squat 210 pounds. So that's not a whole lot. I mean, it's 5 pounds over my personal body weight, so I think it's pretty specific. But that's only a step in my goal. My goal is actually to be able to squat 300. And the reason for that being is if something goes bad and I have an officer down, we got some pretty big dudes on our department, and I know 2 of them are 260 pounds. So if I can squat 300, I know I can pull those guys out to safety and be safe. So that's my personal thing. So purging the negative thoughts and saying, I can do this, I am going to do this. Oh, this is going to suck, but I'm going to do this. That really makes a big difference. As Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinks, so is he. You have to be able to say, I'm thinking this way because I have to get this done, and not let anything get in the way. So, and then don't waste your time on idiots. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, hey, I don't like what you're doing. I don't care. It's not going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to do what I'm doing because it's working. And then there'll be those who try to hijack you. You have to get rid of them too. Just ignore them. Because and then if you're really paying attention, you're gonna. I'm hearing all kinds of barking and kids.
Oh, can you hear that? Yeah, there's dogs barking and people doing all kinds of stuff in the background here. Construction mode doesn't end here any time of day, it seems like.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was like, all of a sudden I just got a real big feedback in my ear. I was like, whoa. Anyway, behind the curtain, folks, behind the curtain. Don't look behind the curtain.
That's right.
But don't waste your time on idiots. Proverbs 23 again. And I'm telling you, Proverbs 23, that whole section, I don't care if you believe in God or not. Proverbs 23, that is some of the most fantastic poetry that you will ever read. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of your words. Proverbs 23:9. How true is that? How many times have you said something that was actually true, and they're like, no, it's not. No, it's that. And just completely ramshackle your entire life. Just wasting time on an idiot who has no clue.
So I wonder for you, when you have this standard that impacts you more than just the way you think, it's more than just a baseline that you have. It impacts how you live. And I think probably every aspect of your life. You look at some people who have a similar base as you, they might believe the same way, use the Bible, but their standard for themselves is extremely low. It hasn't brought them to a higher place. It hasn't caused them to want to go out and better themselves really in any way. I think that's for myself, one of the areas that the church for me growing up didn't reach out to was every other area of my life. It was a pursuit of the spiritual life. But the rest of your life could fall apart completely. And it was fine. You could physically be on borderline death, and it's okay as long as your spiritual life is together. So what is it for you as that being your baseline? How does that impact the rest of your life? The way you dress, the way you present yourself, the way you speak?
I want to make sure that what I do elevates everyone else around me. It's not simply because of me. It's because I want to bring those around me up. I want them to elevate their standards and maybe look at themselves and say, maybe I can do that too. You know, some people will look at this and be like, oh, well, that's not healthy, you know, this, that, you know. And one of my favorite, and you can find this on YouTube because that's where I found it. It's Tolkien, and he's reading a fan letter, and he's like, Mr. Tolkien, showing yourself smoking a pipe all the time. And you can hear Tolkien reading it with a pipe in his mouth. And he's like, oh dear, that's terrible. Well, anyone who thinks like that, shut up. Yeah, just straight up, not caring at all. And actually, over here at Fort Worth, Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, it's a very, very big seminary over there. I think it was A.W. Pink, who, if you're in the theologian world, is a pretty big name for theology. And he was walking on campus smoking his pipe. And one of the other professors was like, sir, I am offended by that, and points to his pipe. And A.W. Pink, without missing a beat and barely pausing long enough to say it, points to his back gut and says, I'm offended by that. So where is it? That's ultimately what it is. And I tell people, it's like when we were doing the 21 days, the phase 1. And I remember you sent out here's the phase 1 thing. And I just laughed. Because it's like, I've been doing that every day for over a decade. And it's just because it's a lifestyle I have established for myself, because I knew that I needed to do something better, something more. So I had been eating better. Now I'm eating a whole lot more clean than even I was 10 years ago, simply because I found out only about 3 years ago that I have an MSG allergy. So guess what? That precludes me pretty much eating at any restaurant whatsoever. I don't drink sodas. I don't drink, I can't have certain ice creams. So like Brahms is a really big place around here. And really big place in Texas and Oklahoma. And man, I used to eat me some ice cream. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. But they put carrageenan in their ice cream, and carrageenan has MSG, and that causes me all kinds of neurological problems. So I have to be careful with that sort of thing. But I can count on one hand how many sodas I've had in the last 10 years.
But what brings that out? So you said that you want other people to have sort of a standard, you care about other people, but why? What does that come from?
What it comes from is seeing so many people having so many issues and problems and not recognizing that they are causing their own. People with type 2 diabetes, I have family members who have type 2 diabetes. Guess how they get it? By their own actions. They did exactly what they wanted to do. They drank as many sodas as they wanted to. They had however many, how much sugar, how much bread, how much all this other stuff, because they just wanted what tasted good. And the thing is, you can find stuff that tastes good that isn't bad for you, but they make it so easy to have these bad things. I mean, when I was in college age, I lived on Michelina, just a little Michelina pasta dishes, little mac and cheese, little chicken Alfredo, little thing. And I noticed it's like, man, I'm starting to put on weight. And this was in my 20s, where when I wasn't nearly as heavy as I eventually became. Man, I'm starting to put on a little weight. So I started having to do some different things, and then, okay, kind of got the weight down. But it's like, I kept eating the same stuff. Well, as I got older, I kept going with the same paradigm and kept doing the same thing. I was like, man, this is really sucking. Had some medical issues that came up, and couldn't figure it out. And finally, I started. I was like, I had to go on a complete fast. So I fasted for 7 days straight with nothing but water. And let me tell you, that's hard. But when I started, I only got stuff that I knew had 100% nutrition with nothing added to it, no preservatives. So if you look at an ingredients
Is
list,
that just me?
package.
Oh, there we go. You froze up for a second there, but you're back with it.
Yeah, you did too. So I guess I don't know if the
audience
caught it.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, I mean, I basically had to reintegrate things a little bit at a time. And if you look at an ingredients list, you see all the stuff that it's like, what does that mean? You know, maltodextrin.
Oh yeah.
All those multi-syllabic, ingredients that they post on all those things. It's like, if you can't read it, it's probably something you don't want to eat or drink.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's a pretty good rule.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say, but the thing is, what I've had to do is actually do it, and that's where.
Yes, that's absolutely.
That's where
that's where everyone falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's stinking difficult. It takes for a lot of people. It takes the fun out of life. It takes what they enjoy the most. Is just that lax lifestyle. What you're doing, to me, it really comes back down to a disciplined life. A disciplined life is not an easy life. It's never easy. I mean, I feel like even if you get into a routine, it's a difficult routine. It's easier to sleep in than it is to get up and get the work done that you need to get done. It's easier to just eat whatever you want than it is to eat clean and work out. It's easier to, it's like, that's a constant struggle. And for a lot of people, it sounds like maybe this isn't true, but it seems, and I've wondered, does it come more natural to some people? Is that just in them? Like the idea for you of going back to a lax lifestyle is probably more painful or difficult than it would be to continue with this. Is that because it's in you, or because it's something you trained yourself to do?
I've trained myself to do this because, like I said, my family, if you saw me and then saw the rest of my family, you'd be like, wait a minute. Okay, I see the facial. The thing is, the size difference is exponential. And granted, I mean, I'm not completely skinny by any stretch, but by comparison of how my family has come up, and the way they have, continued to live in the same thing. And they know I do this, but they're not willing. And
so what's your family think of it? I mean, they look at it
okay
as like, I wish I could be that way, or do you drive them crazy because you're the one who's like there?
Yeah. Well, no, it's mostly the bride. She's the one I drive crazy.
Well, that's true in any situation, any relationship.
It doesn't matter. She's the one that's gonna get inconvenienced by it. But
heck yeah.
She has come along. And she's realized it's like, because if I'm having these troubles, our kids are going to have these kind of troubles. So it's like, well, you might as well go ahead and try to establish this lifestyle now. And the thing is, it's like, even the kids have seen now how this has changed how we operate, because they've always had these healthy lunches and they get made fun of and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but their teachers would encourage them, say, oh, I'm glad to see you have a healthy lunch. This is great, because all their other friends were getting Lunchables and leftover pizza and all these other things, which, they're not bad in themselves. It's just, you could tell that's all they ate. They didn't have the constant eating. Because, did we go splurge? Oh yeah, I go eat me a hamburger, man. I'm all over that. Matter of fact, my birthday being Saturday, we're going to go have some fish and chips. I'm going to throw down on some fish and chips, my boy. We got this place on the west side of Fort Worth called Zeke's. Oh, amazing. It is awesome. The thing is, though, they're hush puppies. They got little, they must put some kind of pepper in it. They are on fire. But, oh, smells just so good. So, yeah, I mean, I eat pretty much what I want. but that's because what I want is actually good for me too. So that's where the mind comes in. So you do have to set up the discipline and do that. You cannot live the undisciplined life.
Right. And it goes for every aspect of your life. And that's one of the things we're trying to incorporate into this Betterments thing is your mind, body, spirit, relationships, and your work, how you work. It applies to all of those things because I think if any of those things get out of whack, it impacts all the rest. They're all intricately tied together. And what a lot of people tend to do is focus on one of them. And the rest of them just fall apart. And I think that it's extremely difficult to focus on all of those, but if you give yourself, that's why we do this 21-day thing. It's just because for a lot of guys, that's the first time they've even attempted something like that.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that it will, at least I'm hoping, give a glimpse at the benefits that can bring. It's not easy, that's for sure, especially when you're just getting into it. And you'll continue to struggle. I mean, for myself, I've been trying to do this for almost a year now, and I continually fall. I keep thinking it's going to become easier. It doesn't. It hasn't yet. It's still a struggle. Some of it's easier in a way. Some of it does become a lifestyle, like you say. But there's some of it is just you have to. I mean, somebody just commented here, and which is so true. They said there's no end for a man. You'll always have a struggle. It's never ending. You have to fight that fight every day. And I think, especially if you're on a self-improvement journey and you have something you're fighting for, I mean, that's the real key to me. You have to have something you're fighting for and understand what that is and why it's so important to you that you're willing to go through the struggle and the discipline and the hardships that you're going to face to better yourself.
Well, that was kind of what I was encouraging the guys in my phase 1 group. I was like, here's the thing, guys, you have to make it a lifestyle. You can't just say, I'm going to do this diet for so long. Yeah, I'm going to do this workout for so long.
Yeah.
You have to say, I am changing the way I live entirely. It has to be an all or nothing. It really does.
Yeah, it does.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. If you're going to walk away of a good, godly man, you have to absolutely embrace all aspects of it, whatever that is, and don't stop. I mean, I've been injured. I've had some, doing those squats. It's like I only hit 210. I should already be at 350 right now, but I've had some injuries. Of course, I'm older, and those injuries take longer to heal. So it's one of those things that as you age, you're going to have to understand. But the thing about it is,
but that is the key.
Yeah, but the thing is, I knew I was going to go back.
It's continuing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I just went back to it.
Because you're going to fail. You might fail every day for a year, 2 years. It might be that bad, but it is that mindset. I mean, that is what changes it. It's doing rather than trying. And a lot of people try things. They're willing to try things. But if you're trying something, then you're going into it with the wrong mindset to begin with. You're going to fail. You have to go into it doing it with a 100%, you cannot turn back sort of mindset, because it's all in your mind at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
That's what's going to defeat you if you allow it. And it's what's been defeating people for so long. It's what's defeating you right now is your mind, your unwillingness to get up again, to like this guy said, to fight every single day. It's exhausting though. It is exhausting, but I think the rewards are worth it. But you have to know what the rewards are for you. And I think that's the point of this whole show is what is that for you? What is that standard at its core? What at its base? Why is this so important? And if you don't have that, you'll never succeed at it. And whatever, there's no succeed, but I shouldn't say succeed, but you'll never.
Well,
you'll never.
Your plans succeed. Your plans succeed, but your life.
Your plans, sure.
So as far as you will have some successful plans and you'll have some failures. That's the way life goes. There are things that are going to happen. I actually went and took the sergeant's test last December. But the thing is, I lost a month and a half of study because my parents both went down with COVID. So I was either at the hospital or at the house managing their care for that month and a half because they were both down. Neither one of them could take care of each other. So guess what? I'm the closest one. I had to go do that. So I went and took the test, but I did not pass it. I did not pass it. So I'm going to have to, and I'll tell you right now, it's like to any of the guys in the group, probably somewhere around February, between February and March, I will probably not be around because I will be exclusively for 90 days studying that test because that will be the next.
Oh,
the next
wow.
objective.
No kidding.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a 90-day thing. And when I
Wow.
say it's studying text, the texts, if you've had them, I intend to get them on the electronic version. If I can get my hands to set it, it'll probably be about that thick. So, and of course, law books and textbooks and dribble in some cases. So there are some things that'll be in there that'll be completely useless. But that'll be my next thing. So it's, and just like I'm reading a whole bunch of books right now, trying to get my mind into that, and that's part of the reason why I took all these notes that I. So we would actually, and we're doing good on time even.
Yeah, we are. We're doing this is the best on time we've done. We've like gone through every question accurately, well, and we have 9 minutes to spare.
I know. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. But that's the other thing. It's like you have to discipline yourself when you study. So like I say, train your mind daily. Thing is, what I'll do, and this is the way I would do it, and you'll have to find out what study method works well for you in order for me to internalize the text. Because like the Elvish that I started out with, I have to write it multiple times until I get it down and get the full text of everything, and then I have to work out the syllables and then all that other stuff. There's a whole bunch of details that you have to do because there's more to that. So, Menena Sarare, how are you today? I am Medellin normal. Manana Montenay. Hail, dear and wise friend. I am well, thank you. You know, and I'm still having to read that. But Soledad Otoronia Borima. Oh gosh, now I'm doing it. El Encila Lumen Nomen Tiervo. Now, El Encila Lumen Tiervo, if you've read the Lord of the Rings books, that was Frodo's greeting to the elves when they were trying to leave the Shire. And that's when he says, be careful, there's an elf friend here who knows our secrets, because he spoke Elvish to them. So so that's actually a pretty particular phrase. And like I said, you know, Bilbo and Frodo's book, which actually, this is what I'm smoking today, for those who care, for those Tolkien fans. Capstan Blue Lake Tobacco. And it is so delicious.
We need to get some of that. Never tried it.
Well, I'll show you. And of course, I keep it in a jar, but that's what that looks like.
Oh wow! No kidding.
Oh yeah.
You can see where it gets the name like bark. That looks like bark.
Oh yeah, that's the flake.
Jeez
Well,
Louise.
it's called a Navy flake because they would press these for the Navy guys, and the reason is because they hold their moisture level over a long period of time. So they, a sailor would get a ration of this, and actually this is probably what they were sending to the doughboys in World War I when Lewis and Tolkien were over there, and they would have these. And I think there's a couple other ones, but oh, you can't get the flake in the UK? That's communist.
I know, that's rough. Yeah, it is. That's pretty rough. Although I can get it and haven't tried it, so what's my excuse?
Well, it ain't cheap, I'll tell you that. Well, you know what? I'm gonna have to call my brother. My brother lives in Portsmouth, so UK guys. He's living the life with you guys. And sorry about the Queen. Man, amazing lady. That was an amazing lady. If
Yep.
you didn't like her just for her, you talk about standards. That woman
It's
had
true.
standards, exceptional standards. And obviously her children didn't always find it. Well, if you got the ready rub, man, you're good. It's the same stuff. It's just, I mean, I turn this into a ready rub when I put it in the bowl. I'm answering the question, sorry.
That's what I wanted to do at the end of this thing, is get to the
Yeah.
whoever's actually still watching this. So if you're watching this live and have questions, comments, concerns, share away. This was great though. I don't know how the audio turned out. It sounded pretty lousy on my end, but we'll see.
Well, I got the dogs and the kids there for a second.
Yeah, I know it's not ideal, but that's the way this is. Anytime you start something like this, I have learned this has been a hard thing for me, is like putting out trash, basically. Like I'm, like putting out something that you're embarrassed by, like the sound quality. I'm in a closet. I've been working all day on the house. I look like, but because otherwise I would sit there and never do anything. So at some point you just have to put it out there.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, as far as this is mostly, it's mostly our guys right now. Just watching the stuff. But honestly, I mean, if we did do this is how I would present myself. If we were in the same room together, I would present myself like this. I would want to be, presentable and have my stuff, have my notes, have my. Because let me tell you, our podcast, you better be smoking a pipe.
I agree. If you're not
First,
smoking
that's the reason why I'm. That's the reason why I'm in the garage. So, good. No pipes in the house. So.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. I want to get one of those filtration systems they have for the rooms that apparently suck out the smoke pretty well. I would love to get something like that.
What is it? Is it the rabbit? I think it's a rat. Is it rabbit? It's something that has a bunny in it. Something that has a rabbit in it. I'll have to look it up. I'll have to post it in the smoking thing.
Yeah.
It's $700, but I'm like, okay. But the thing is, when you see why, you see why pretty quick. All the filtration it's got in it, and the guys who are demonstrating that I've seen on YouTube, it's like it's instantaneous, and then they've had people walk into the room who've never been in the room and can't tell that there's been any smoking in it at all.
No kidding.
So pretty intense.
We need to get this podcast going well enough to where they can become a sponsor, and that's just one of the. As you become a guest, you just get one of those. That's what we need to figure out. Rabbit Air, somebody said. Yeah,
Rabbit Air. Yes, that's it. Rabbit Air. And absolutely. So yeah, I'm going to be the guest on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Reasons.
All right, good sir. Well, I'm heading over to Discord if you're able to make it for a little chat over there.
I'll swing over there.
Betterments group. All right, cool. Well, thanks for doing this and for your patience. This was a rough way to get this podcast going, but we did it.
Hey, you got done.
Appreciate it. I'll see you over at Discord.